Imagine getting a multi-million-dollar cloud computing bill, right?
Mm.
And not because your company's new product went viral and traffic spiked, but because your engineers were secretly burning through thousands of dollars a day just asking an AI model to write their code for them.
Right, which is just a massive wake-up call. Because
Yeah,
the unlimited, completely unchecked fuel of the AI hype train, it has officially run out.
it really has. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we have a massive stack of updates from the August 5th, 2026 edition of the Daily Tech Reader. And our mission for you today is to basically unpack this brutal paradigm shift happening right now across the whole technology sector.
Yeah, we're looking at a really hard transition. The initial gold rush has collided with, well, the harsh realities of physics, corporate economics, and global infrastructure. We are moving from this era of unchecked possibility to an era demanding immediate return on investment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to see this reality check in action, we just have to look at the massive corporate shakeups at the biggest tech companies in the world. Like, let's start with Google.
Oh, yeah. Google had its biggest leadership reshuffle in years.
Right. Demis Hassab, is the guy who basically built DeepMind, is actually stepping back from his day-to-day CEO role. He's becoming Alphabet's chief scientist, focusing entirely on AGI strategy.
Which is such a massive signal. By moving him away from the daily product battles, Alphabet is essentially walling off their long-term, existential bets from the immediate commercial pressure.
Right, the pressure to just constantly compete with OpenAI.
Exactly. So they are handing the day-to-day operations to Kare Kavukwiglu. He's stepping up as senior vice president to run Gemini, Frontier Research, all the app teams. They clearly need a distinct line between blue sky research and shipping actual consumer products that generate revenue.
But, Hassab is moving sideways wasn't even the biggest shockwave for them. Jeff Dean is leaving.
Yeah, 27 years at Google, an absolute legend.
He architected the systems that basically run the modern internet. And he's taking DeepMind VP Oriel Vinyals and Google Brain co-founder Kwok Lee with him.
That is a staggering exodus of foundational talent.
Mm-hmm.
They're founding a public benefit corporation called Discovery Loop, right?
Yeah, Discovery Loop. And their stated goal is wild. They want to automate the full experimental method, starting with machine learning research, but expanding into drug discovery and chip design. Alphabet shares actually tanked over 5% on the news.
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific ambition of Discovery Loop. Automating the scientific method means building AI that doesn't just analyze data, but actively formulates hypotheses, It designs experiments, tests them, iterates on the results, all without human bottlenecks.
They're trying to build AI that builds AI.
Exactly. But for Google, losing the very engineers who design their foundational infrastructure, that is a heavy blow right when they're under intense pressure to streamline.
It really makes you wonder if losing Jeff Dean is sort of the end of an era for their foundational AI dominance. But then you look over at Microsoft, and their reality check is just as harsh.
Yeah, though theirs is purely financial.
Right. Satya Nadella has been publicly touting this massive $37 billion AI run rate. But a Bloomberg review of Microsoft's latest revenue filing revealed something pretty crazy.
Out of that $37 billion, $24 billion comes purely from reselling the OpenAI API.
Yes. It is not coming from the growth of Microsoft's own in-house Copilot products. The filing showed that growth is completely modest. So basically, Microsoft isn't selling the revolutionary new gold mining software like Copilot. They're just running the toll booth for OpenAI's picks and shovels.
I'd push back on that analogy slightly. Yes, they are acting as the toll booth. But unlike a simple rental company, Microsoft owns the highway itself.
Fair point.
They own the Azure servers, they own the enterprise distribution channels. So if OpenAI stumbles, Microsoft still controls the underlying infrastructure every enterprise relies on. But your core point is completely valid. It proves Microsoft's internal AI integration isn't the game changer they promised investors.
And the internal panic at Microsoft reflects that perfectly.
Yeah.
There's a memo from Microsoft Executive VP Jay Purick telling engineers to literally stop quote-unquote token maxing.
Yeah, that memo is the ultimate corporate reality check.
Teams were burning massive amounts of money just on compute tokens. So now they are capped with strict division-level budgets, and they're being forced to use GPT 5.6 as the cheaper internal default.
We should probably explain what token maxing implies mechanically, because a token is a chunk of data the AI processes. Every single time a developer asks the model to evaluate code, The servers spin up, electricity is consumed, water is used for cooling.
It's expensive.
Extremely. You cannot have thousands of engineers treating a multi-billion parameter model like it's a free Google search. The physical constraints of the technology are finally asserting themselves.
Which is the perfect transition. Because if Microsoft and Google are spending billions on compute just to justify their AI ROI, generating text just isn't going to pay the bills anymore.
No, not at all. The only way to recoup that investment is if the AI actually does heavy autonomous work for you.
And to do that, you need a hardware footprint that sounds like straight-up science fiction.
Which brings us to the global compute grid. We are no longer talking about software running quietly in a basement server rack. AI is now heavy industry. We are watching the physical rewiring of the planet.
Let's look at the numbers because they are insane. On SpaceX's Q2 earnings call, Elon Musk announced they are going all in on NVIDIA's Vera Rubin architecture. He plans 2 gigawatts of installed power by the end of this year.
2 gigawatts, that's massive.
And 10 gigawatts by the end of 2027. Next year, they're launching a Starmine satellite with an optimized Vera Rubin NVL-72 setup in orbit.
We really need to pause on that scale. 10 gigawatts is roughly equivalent to the power consumption of 10 average nuclear reactors.
10 gigawatts is enough to power several major cities. And they're putting this architecture in space. I'm honestly mind-blown.
Well, the Vera Rubin NVL-72 is a massive, liquid-cooled, multi-rack system. Putting a modified version in low Earth orbit suggests SpaceX is trying to solve the terrestrial bottlenecks of latency and fiber optic limitations. They want a global, space-based compute grid.
But if hardware is this new heavy industry, how do we explain AMD? They posted record Q2 revenue of $11.5 billion, up 50%.
And their data center revenue more than doubled, right? To $6.7 billion. That's 58% of their total.
Exactly. But their shares fell 7%.
Yeah.
Because investors were disappointed by a $13 billion Q3 outlook. How can a company double its data center revenue and still have angry investors? Are the markets pricing in science fiction instead of reality?
They absolutely are pricing in science fiction. Wall Street assumed the hardware demand would just double indefinitely. But as we saw with the Microsoft memo, enterprise budgets have a ceiling. We are seeing companies spread out geographically to find cheaper power to maintain this illusion of infinite growth. Look at CoreWeave. They're making their first Asia-Pacific push, booking 360 megawatts in Indonesia across 3 data centers coming online in 2028.
Wow. Targeting Southeast Asian government and enterprise demand, right?
Exactly. They are going where the power grids can still actually accommodate them.
And you don't deploy 10 gigawatts of power or build 360 megawatts of data centers in Indonesia just to generate text. All this orbital and terrestrial hardware is powering autonomous software that takes action on our behalf. Which brings us to a huge legal and technical frontier.
The rise of autonomous agents.
Yes. So the Ninth Circuit Court just reversed an order that barred Perplexity's Comet shopping agent from Amazon. The court ruled that users are the ones accessing Amazon, not Perplexity.
This is a landmark first federal appeals ruling on autonomous web agents. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this essentially gives legal cover for AI to act as a digital proxy for you.
It's the classic, don't blame the tool, blame the user defense. It reminds me of the early days of VCRs or torrenting. They just build the robot, and whatever you tell the robot to do is on you.
Right. But that transition from AI as conversationalist to AI as actor gets really complicated when these agents get deeper access to our actual operating systems.
Oh, and they are. Meta just launched Muse Code. It's a terminal coding agent on their Muse Spark 1.2 model.
And that runs natively on Mac OS and Linux, doesn't it?
Yeah, with async workers. It's $1.25 per million input tokens. It has bundled skills like /plan and /grill. You're giving an AI terminal access to write and execute code.
Which is why Cloudflare simultaneously open-sourced Cloudflare OS, their internal agent workspace. It includes a service called Gatekeeper.
Yeah, what does Gatekeeper actually do? The source mentioned it issues typed capability bindings.
Think of a typed capability binding like giving a contractor a highly specific temporary key card. Instead of full access, the gatekeeper issues a key that only allows the AI to, say, read a specific database for 5 minutes. It blocks the agents from leaking inaccessible resources.
Zero trust guardrails.
Exactly. When you give AI the ability to run code autonomously, those guardrails are the only thing preventing total system compromise.
But some developers are facing a massive backlash against this entirely. Yeah. The Rust-Lang project, the maintainers of the Rust programming language, just explicitly banned LLM written pull requests.
They allow LLM analysis, but the actual code creation is banned.
Right, because they say it exhausts human reviewer bandwidth and degrades craftsmanship. But let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't banning AI-generated code like banning calculators in a math test? Are they just fighting an inevitable tide of progress to preserve this old-school idea of craftsmanship?
That's a fair question, but their caution is highly justified right now. It's not just about craftsmanship. AI can generate thousands of lines of plausible code in seconds, and humans have to spend hours meticulously checking it for subtle hallucinations. It burns out the reviewers.
That makes sense.
And more importantly, developers right now aren't just dealing with AI spam, they are under active, highly sophisticated cyber siege.
Which perfectly transitions us into the cybersecurity epidemic in the AI era. CIELA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, just added 3 massive flaws to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog.
The KEV catalog? Yeah, this is serious.
We're talking about a Langflow remote code execution flaw with a CVSS score of 9.8 out of 10, plus Apache Tomcat encryption bypass and an enable auth bypass.
A 9.8 severity means an attacker doesn't even need to authenticate to execute arbitrary code over the network. The guardrails simply haven't caught up with the speed of innovation, so the attack surface is massive.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. There was an NPM credential-stealing worm that spread from a package called Key at version 6.0.0.
Right, via a pre-install script.
Yes, targeting developer and CI pipelines. It poisoned up to 868 packages across 1,381 versions. To me, it's not that they're breaking into your house. They're poisoning the pipes that feed every house in the neighborhood.
That is the exact reality of supply chain attacks. Attackers know developers are moving fast to build AI tools, which makes them perfect targets.
They're specifically targeting AI developers through Trojanized GitHub repositories, embedding malicious payloads right in popular ML tooling projects. So I have to ask, is the Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things fundamentally incompatible with AI security?
It certainly seems that way. Look at Anaconda. They just acquired the AI security from Encrypt AI. Encrypt previously found 143,000 vulnerabilities across 73% of scanned MCP servers.
Model context protocol servers. So 73% of these servers letting AI models talk to local files are just wide open.
Exactly. The sheer volume of vulnerabilities shows that rushing to give AI agents memory and access is leaving massive holes in enterprise security.
And just a quick side note, completely unrelated to AI, but highly relevant for our listeners who are traveling professionals. Russian hackers are actively abusing hotel Wi-Fi networks right now to steal Microsoft 365 credentials and deploy malware.
Yeah, the threat landscape is hostile everywhere. But while Silicon Valley is struggling with these massive security flaws and internal cost panics, a quiet revolution is happening on the other side of the world.
And it is fundamentally shifting who controls the future of AI. A New York Times feature just revealed that African developers are overwhelmingly choosing Chinese open-source AI models over U.S. closed models.
Models like DeepSeek, Qwen, and Kimi.
Yes, because of lower costs and easier customization for local languages. Uganda's Sunflower LLM is a prime example. It's built on Qwen 3 and covers 31 local languages.
This is a massive blind spot for U.S. tech giants. By focusing on high-cost, closed enterprise models, they are leaving the entire global south open to Chinese open-source dominance. This raises an important question regarding long-term global tech hegemony.
It really does, because if the next billion developers are building on Chinese infrastructure, because it actually speaks their language, does it matter how fast SpaceX's NVIDIA chips are?
Probably not. If the foundational layer is built on open-source Chinese models, that ecosystem gets locked in.
Meanwhile, U.S. companies are so desperate for ROI that they're just forcing AI onto consumers. Google confirmed they are permanently removing Google Assistant from Android, Wear OS, and Android Auto on September 4th.
Forcing Gemini as the sole replacement, right?
With no option to switch back. It's like a landlord forcing you to move into a fancy new smart home where half the light switches don't work yet.
And you're interacting with a massive LLM just to set a timer.
Exactly. And speaking of AI in our daily lives, Zoox is launching paid robotaxi rides in Las Vegas on August 10th. We got an NHTSA exemption, so now they're charging base fares, distance rates, even airport and arena surcharges.
Though rides are still free in San Francisco and Austin during testing.
Right. But it just shows how fast this is moving into reality. So let's wrap this up. We've covered massive ground today, from Google and Microsoft's corporate reality checks to SpaceX's gigawatts of hardware,
the legal birth of autonomous web agents,
severe developer supply chain hacks, and the shifting geopolitical sands of open-source AI. Whether you are a developer pulling code from GitHub, a business leader looking at your enterprise AI budget, or just someone taking a Zoox to the Las Vegas airport, these massive structural shifts are directly rewriting the rules of your daily life.
They really are. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about courts ruling that AI agents legally represent you, and we talked about hackers poisoning the very tools these agents use. So ask yourself, when your autonomous AI agent accidentally downloads a Trojanized package on your behalf, who is legally responsible for the fallout? You or the machine?
Wow. That is the exact question we're going to have to answer very soon. Keep questioning the information around you, folks. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.